Hello, my friends. My name is Darren Gerdes. It is Wednesday, October 23rd, and this is the Daily Brief. My job here is just to provide context so that you can understand what's going on in the war in Ukraine. 1,460 Russian casualties day over day. Again, the average of the highest month was 1,271. It's been north of 14, 15, up to 17 regularly over the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So I'm pretty sure, unless something radically changes, that October is now going to be the highest month of Russian casualties since the war began. Okay, this is the British intelligence update. During September 2024, Russia launched over 1,300 one-way attack uncrewed aerial vehicles. When you see OWA UAVs, that's what one-way attack, essentially kamikaze. This represents the highest number of OWA UAVs launched in a month since the start of the conflict. Based on the current rates, it's almost certain that Russia will surpass this number in October. So, highest casualties, highest one-way attack UAVs. It's unclear whether Russia can sustain this rate throughout the remainder of 2024. Now, that's really interesting because, like with the Shaheds, I understand that they can replenish about 16 a day. Maybe they found a new source or a new way to replenish more. But when I see less than 16, I'm thinking, uh-oh, they're saving up for a big, attack with 100 or 150 or whatever it is. When I see 30, I'm like, okay, that's good because now they can't be saving up for more. Russia utilizes OAW UAVs against a multitude of targets, particularly energy infrastructure, given their ability to strike deep into Ukrainian territory and because they're cheap. They're inexpensive compared to missiles. They get shot down at a pretty high rate, but they're also very cheap, so they can keep producing these. Okay, Russia launched 1,767 Shahed type strike drones in the last 30 days. Now, what did we just talk about? In September, it was over 1,300. Here, over the last 30 days, it's been 1,767. Okay, so it keeps going up. You can just look at the graph here. Okay, also for the first time, the Ukrainian General Staff reported 165 glide bombs, KAB, FAB with glide module, were dropped in a single day. 165 in a single day, with 117 as a daily average beginning in September. Okay, here are the losses Andrew Perpetua could identify for today. It looks something like about 2.5, maybe 3 to 1, and there's a lot of them. It's pretty significant. It's hot on the front lines. Russian partisans opposed to the Putin regime set fire to a signal box of the Russian railroad, bringing the chariots of war to a stop near Chelyabinsk, Russia. Okay, so what's interesting about this is that the Russians depend pretty heavily on their railroad system. It's not like the United States. Like, yes, we travel and produce. We have trucks that are on the roads, but we also use rail lines regularly. But we're not dependent on the rail lines like the Russians are dependent on their rail lines. Okay, Andrew Perpetua said, how is it that every blogger, social media person, YouTuber, etc. understands how to contact sources and get real info, but the people who work for major news outlets have no idea how the internet works and doesn't even know how to read a reference page to find primary sources of a document? It's a good question. I mean, it seems like the Russian, not the Russian, the mainstream media just isn't even interested necessarily in finding out real information or covering the story sometimes. Okay, this is the ISW, the Institute for the Study of War. Ukrainian forces conducted a series of drone strikes on the night of October 21st to 22nd. That's not last night, but before that, targeting distilleries in Russia that reportedly manufacture products for the Russian military. Okay, so that's the answer. And a number of you put that in the comments, and I was like, okay, but I have to wait until I actually see it. So I talked yesterday about the distilleries being hit, said, I'd rather see the Russians drunk than sober. I mean, it'd be probably better off for the Ukrainian military that way. And to your credit, a number of you said, well, those distilleries can make chemicals for use for the Russian military. I said, oh, tucked that in the back of my mind, said, I got to look for that and see if I can find it. Sure enough, here it is. Good on you. You guys are so smart. Frontline report. Ukrainian elite special forces seize new ground near Kharkiv and stabilized defense after the Russians transferred most of their units from this direction to Kursk. So, there's two things that I want to show you in this. This is the actual article from Euromaidan Press, just so you can feel what it's like the enormity of what the battlefield is like. Ukrainian drone operators quickly intercepted the Russian Marines as they attempted to advance across the border. The drones effectively wiped out an entire assault platoon, destroying 3 BMPs, 2 along with the Marines who tried in vain to escape the strikes. Like, you just can't, like, drone warfare has just so changed things that you just, the old rule book or the old manual about how to go about doing things, you just have to throw it out and start over. And then this, under the cover of night, Ukrainian troops crossed the border through nearby forests, avoiding Russian detection, scattered to evade drones. Like, they have to do things differently. The Russian Marines were unable to mount a coordinated defense, allowing Ukrainian fighters to capture many of them. Belgorod governor later confirmed that Ukrainian forces had launched cross-border raid. Okay, so it's just the drones have changed everything, and I've talked about this. I just did a video just about how much drones have changed everything. Go back and see that. It was like 2 days ago. Okay, Russian propagandists are certain that the first long-range missile strike on Russia will hit their propaganda studio. Well, that's a little self-important, but here's what they had to say. If we're talking about NATO's direct warfare today, if there's talk about long-range missiles, the first strike will be on this place, here, including here. They will target this studio. The question is, will it reach or not? But as a military man, I can tell you that air defense doesn't shoot down 100% of their targets, maybe 99%. And out of 100, one of them will hit. And we will have to be prepared for that too. Okay, so first, you're not that important, and yes, it is coming. Give it time. The Ukrainians are working on it. Now, this was an interesting speech. I think this was the European Council, and he's saying if you clapped for Orban 2 weeks ago, you are now on North Korea's side. Let's listen to what he has to say.
Russia needs to pay. Russia needs to pay for the reconstruction. Russia needs to pay for bombing children and hospitals and electricity plants. And I'm happy we're making the invader pay, because for some it's still hard to understand, but Russia is the invader. But colleagues, it's also part of the truth that Orban is again stopping a more long-term solution within the Ukraine facility that we just approved a couple of months ago, and that he's stopping 10 billion euros from the US by not allowing the extension of the freezing of the Russian assets. So for all those who have been clapping here last week, 2 weeks ago, for Orban, who is sitting here from the far left and the far right, we have to be aware that you're on the side of North Korea now, that is trying to help Russia invade. You're on the side of Putin, you're on the side of the guy who is using Russian interests within the European Council, and we need to wake up, we need to make Russia pay and Ukraine win. Thank you.
That's a spot on. I couldn't say it any better myself. Okay, France is to deliver 3 Mirage 2005 fighters to Ukraine in early 2025. What, 3? It's actually supposed to be somewhere around 20. We'll actually get there. 3 will arrive right away in the beginning of 2025, with more to follow. Russia, on October 23rd, launched another series of intense drone and missile strikes on Ukraine. That happens every day. But even as Britain announced that it had completed the training of 200 Ukrainian pilots who will fly the F-16 fighter jets provided by Kyiv's Western allies. Now, that does not mean that there are 200 ready to go. What it does mean is that they've completed their basic flying training. A new group of Ukrainian pilots has graduated from RAF elementary flying training. The next step is advanced fast jet training and the conversion to F-16 with partner nations. So that's the whole story there. You want to triangulate on sources in order to make sure that you're seeing the big picture. Okay, I thought this was fascinating. Ukraine has released an appeal in Korean urging DPRK soldiers to surrender as prisoners of war. So this is the I want to live kind of thing. So the video shows one of the POW camps promising safe conditions, shelter, food, and warmth. Like, if you're from North Korea, this has to look good. Like, look at all that food. Like, they're going to feed you that, more calories than you're used to every day, just being a prisoner of war in a Ukrainian POW camp. That's that's just fascinating to me. Okay. On this day, Darth Putin says, on this day in 1956, a fascist revolution of hooligans financed by the imperialist West began in Hungary. This meant the USSR had to send an army on holiday to liberate them from themselves. Well, I mean, if you use today's rhetoric, that would make sense. And then we'll leave you with this. This is the Alley of Fallen Heroes, which has been opened in Odessa. These young men died defending Ukraine against Russian aggression. And the memorial is fitting, and people are coming out to see their loved ones. All right, my friends, that's all that I have. Thank you for the time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.